Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm just doing this video to sort of address the wildland, actually the entire firefighting community, medical services community across the United States of America. And I realize this is probably going to ruffle some feathers, so I'm going to put a qualifier up, and that is that I love everybody on the planet. I love everything that is living in spirit, okay? And that is particularly true for all the fires that have occurred throughout California, actually all the West, all over the planet. As we know who's been lighting a lot of those. Of course, that doesn't necessarily include those that are naturally occurring in nature that come from lightning. And it used to be the percentage of those was 10%. Okay, so for those that are firefighters out there, I'll give you a little bit of my background, and that is I started out working in Orange County Fire with the Orange County Fire, California Department of Forestry. I worked on engines. I worked on engines in San Diego County, worked on engines in Riverside County, worked on engines in San Bernardino County, and that gave me a lot of experience to fight a lot of wildfire fires all over Southern California. And then I worked up in Monterey County with CDF, and then I went to work for the Forest Service. I went into jumpers, I went into hill attack, I went into dozers. I wanted to go into every single facet of everything related to fire. For reasons that I mentioned before, and that had to do with what I'm about to say, which is a post that I just put up on Twitter addressing both the Orange County Public Information Officer because they apparently burned up, I shouldn't say they, 2 firefighters were critically burned yesterday. Okay, I know how that happens because one of the things that I've noticed over the last 25 years is we're losing more firefighters are getting burned, and why is that compared to previous generations? Okay, this is not supposed to be happening. So I came out on sort of the ground floor after working 23 years with multiple agencies across county, state, federal, and just about every facet of firefighting, working my way up from a grunt, if you will, in command positions, okay? And back during the early 1970s, there was a big push to integrate all of the firefighting agencies, okay, with, at that time they called them minorities, and of course females. When I was an engine captain, I had the great distinct pleasure of having 3 females on my crew. Okay, so I shared with them everything that I had learned through all the years in which I had experienced and all my training, because they had a great desire and passion to do that work. And anybody that has a passion to protect lives and protect property, then I will put as much energy as I have to so that they can learn the things that I have learned, so that they can impart that knowledge, remember, knowledge transfer, so that we don't lose anybody, and that we can utilize together as a team, working as a team, okay, in order to accomplish our objectives, which is, remember, bringing things back into peace and harmony again, right? Okay, so I'm very cognizant, and so I will share what one of my response was, because there was somebody that said, what was the question that somebody asked about those firefighters that got critically injured, that said, were these prison camp crews, were these volunteer firefighters, or were these paid firefighters? So the response came in from that, why should that matter? It matters a lot, okay? It matters a whole lot, because what are we talking about here? Training, experience, supervision, and who's doing the training, okay? Now, as much as I don't like to impart this part of what I'm about to say, but as Patty Broussard will tell you, who is the commander of the Earth Defense Forces, okay, there's only 30% of the people on this planet that are Homo sapiens sapiens, Native Indians. I'm a Native Indian. That means when I go out on a fire, okay, I am living spirit. That means I'm communicating with everything that is in nature that's on fire. That means that our state of awareness, because we run higher energy, it means we are aware of more things. Remember I mentioned how that time we almost lost that home because of the guy that I was with that wanted to run an order, And if that would have happened, we would have lost the home. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to move up the ranks, is because when you're running higher hertz, it means you're aware of more stuff. It means you have a looking glass, which means you already know the future. Okay? So, as Patty will tell you, most of the guys that are working in fire and police now are cabal. So when she's talking about cabal, who are we talking about? Hybrids. Lizard family, hybrids. That means that their state of awareness, they're not running a lot of hertz. Now, if you tie this directly into John Gato and all the books and all the research he did on dumbing American down, and then when you get into all the GMOs, you get into all the chemtrails, you get into all the poisoning of the water, poisoning of the air, and all the toxicity that's related to the genetic mutations, okay? If their state of awareness is not high enough to understand where to get all the living energy, to keep your energy up and burn all the junk off, then their state of awareness is tunnel vision, which means their state of awareness is less. That means that things happen in fire that are very unpredictable, and if your state of awareness is not way up and don't have a looking glass, they get hurt, they get killed. More homes get destroyed, more wildfires burn. And it's a fact of life. And these are scalar measurements. I can certainly provide all the science to any firefighting organization on the planet. And that was part of why I did what I did when I was in there. So one of the things that I responded there was, I said, it's real simple. Go back and look at the U.S. Forest Service, and you will find that back in the 1940s, the first hotshot crews that worked for the Forest Service were Native Indian crews. Okay? I had the distinct pleasure of working on a Hillashot crew with a guy who was my crew boss, who was Navajo. Okay? He had a famous reputation because of the fact he could perceive or foresee things that were going to happen. He never got anybody hurt on his crew. He ended up becoming a hotshot crew superintendent for the Dalton Hotshots. That's one of the oldest 20-man line cutting crews in the entire U.S. Forest Service. And they have an unblemished record. They've never gotten anybody burned on any fire for as long as they've been around. Okay? So what you will begin to find is that the firefighters are being lost to through these local agencies. County fire, CDF state fire, and this isn't in the guys that were lost their lives in Colorado. One of the things that I still do, because I still have an intense interest, because fire's in my blood. Spirit of fire, right? So that's why when I'm out in that fire, my spirit of fire can communicate with the spirit of fire in spirit. So it knows who Native tribe is. Remember, she's in nature, the great living spirit of Mother Nature. Okay? Mother Nature, or the Native Indian spirit to this planet, will protect that spirit. Okay? So, I was just honest and truthful. And I said, you know, there isn't very many of us left on the planet whose blood hasn't been compromised as a result of breeding programs. Okay? And of course I explained what the purpose of all that was, right? Lower density consciousness. Remember I mentioned about Max Spears in one of the interviews he did on Basis Project, right? Okay, where a soul comes in and has to struggle between a mammal and a reptile. Okay, the mammal brain, if you will, the female and the male side, the creative side, the logic side, the intelligence side. And then you have a reptile brain, which is fear-based. And all you got to do is traumatize the crap out of everybody on the program and hardwire their reptile brain. Now they're all living at 100 megahertz, which is fear-based. Now you're in vibrational alignment with reptilian consciousness, which is fear-based. Okay, remember the target on the back? So reptiles tunnel vision, that's 2D. So they have a very difficult time being able to perceive things on a much larger scale. Future proves past. We already know the future result, depending on the decision and the choice that we're going to make. Be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively. When you're in a state of peace, that's easy to do even when you got chaos all around you. Indians could do that. Okay, ask anybody who's in martial arts, who's mastered their energy, kung fu, tai chi. Okay, same principle. Just like this guy Wim Hof. Okay, the heart of nature, being in harmony and alignment with the living spirit in nature. So native tribes are native spirit. So we communicate in spirit when we're in nature. So when that place is burning, whether it's a vegetation fire, whether it's a forest fire, she knows we're there. Okay? So we know how to make the decisions that are going to protect these crewmates, these crews that are out there. Okay? That's why they recruited Indians. They went on to become crew bosses. I worked on 2 hotshot crews on the Angeles National Forest. The first crew boss that I had was an Indian. And then I had Lou Yazzie, who was a Navajo, on another crew that I had. But there were a lot of Indians when I first came into firefighting with the U.S. Forest Service, and even with CAL FIRE, okay, that had a higher state of awareness. Okay, guys that were engine crew captains that were Indians. Okay, so you can actually do a study, and you can actually relate, if you wanted to, go look at the statistics on injuries and burns, who was the crew supervisor or who was the crew boss who was supervising when somebody got burned. Take a look at their RH factor, whether they're positive or negative. And I bet you can make a correlation. The difference between a full-blooded Indian with living spirit and a half-breed, because they run lower energy. And lower energy is lower hertz. Lower hertz is dim bulb. That's not much of a looking glass, is it? So who do you want as a fire captain? Running an engine crew. Somebody running 800 megahertz? Or somebody running 150, 200? I've said this before many times. If they want to screen people that are going into critical jobs, they need to scan their frequency. Look at their core frequency identity. Particularly in jobs that are critical when we're dealing with protecting lives and property. They didn't do that. They flooded those ranks with hybrids. As Patty puts it, cabal. Which means they can't generate any love, don't have much compassion, don't have much empathy. And I noticed that just in my own experience. Because every time over the last, 15 years, for example, when I've had breathing problems or I've had physical problems as a result of injuries, okay, because I had osteoporosis, and I call a medic out to come pick me up and take me to an emergency room, there is a distinct difference. It's sort of like this. If I train you on how to do it, remember we're back to functions, which means I can program into your memory how to remember what it is you're supposed to do on a given task modality situation, and then you simply carry it out. Now there's a difference if you are trained to carry out in an emergency situation when you are confronted with a situation how to respond. ABCs, airway, breathing, circulation, right? And so what you do is you size the situation up. What is it I have to do to mitigate the situation? Be alert, keep calm, think clearly, act decisively, and then follow your training. And do it in a state in which you're able to carry it out where you're not all over the place, right? There's a difference between somebody who does it mechanically, like a robot. You can teach a robot how to mend a wound. As a matter of fact, you can train a robot to do surgery. They're already doing that, okay? So there's a big difference between if you're injured really bad and you're in a car wreck and you're bleeding all over the place, you've had a bad head injury, and you're going through losing too much blood, you can go into shock. And if somebody's there who's Indian and native spirit and you can feel how much love he has that he's given you at the same time he's treating you, you can feel the love that he has for you to hold on to you. Your living spirit will feel the spiritual energy, the life force of living spirit giving you that light. Okay? Along with the treatment that you're getting to stabilize you to get you to a doctor. That's a big difference. There's a big difference between what that is and a robot. An android, a hybrid, who comes out there in an ambulance with a straight face, doesn't have any high energy to give you, and simply goes through the mechanical motions. Okay? I've logged and noticed the big difference over the last 40 years. between the kind of people that went into being medics and guys who went into fire back then in the 50s and 60s and early 70s versus what's in those occupations now. They're not the same. Okay? So I knew that there was going to be a downtick. And sure enough, all the statistics are bearing all that out. So anyway, I say that with love in my heart to all the firefighters and nevertheless that are out there, because I realize as a result of all the new weapons, if you will, that were igniting so many millions of acres, which is one of the reasons why I'm jumping on a train tomorrow, okay, and I'm headed up to Klamath Falls, Oregon, and then I'm headed over to Medford, because if you go look at a fire map, you're going to see where an area that I used to hang out, which is bear country, that has one of the highest population counts of black bears. When I looked at a map last week, I realized that when you go up along the coast of California between what is Mendocino County, and you go north into Shasta Trinity National Forest along the coast up into Eureka and a place called Happy Camp, okay, that's all heavy, heavy black bear country. And when I looked at the fire map, I realized, oh my God, you know, that's an area that I used to protect, that's an area I used to hike and camp out, so that's where I'm headed, to go in there to bring in some healing energy, okay? I'm white bear, okay? That's bear spirit. So anyway, you all have a good night. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.